This is the story of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, patch 6.4, The Dark Throne. Now, where we left off at the end of patch 6.3, the Scions had defeated all 4 of Golbez's archfiends, and Rubicante told them they could find Golbez on the moon of the 13th. Let's get started. In Haam, Zero asks the hero and Varshan to join her while she replenishes her ether. They are surprised she wants to dine with company, and they happily accept her invitation. Even more intriguing, she asks the hero to help her pick out spices along the way. She arrives at Mayride's Mahani and offers the spices to be used for a full kettle to feed everyone in the diner.
Excellent. We'll prepare it at once.
As they wait to eat, Varshan says he's happy to see Zero gaining an appreciation for his culture, and he talks about the benefits of spices to their food and their economy. His talk of his vibrant city causes Zero to think of all that has been stolen from those on the 13th. Earlier, Rubicante said the only way forward for them was to claim the source as their own, but at the time, Zero told him that was wrong as she stood in defense of the people of the source.
I still do not understand what made me feel this way, nor what compels you mortals to help one another. But I hope to someday.
Mayride arrives with the curry and warns everyone in the diner that it's very spicy. Once the heroes finish their curry, Varshan suggests they pay Estinian a visit. When they arrive, he's working out and Zero ogles his bare chest.
Shall we disrobe as well?
Varshan says not to. Estinian gets dressed, then Y'shtola arrives with Urianger. She says she just got back from the moon, and Urianger now wishes to lend his aid in finding Ajdaya and stopping Golbez. Then she says they have no way to travel to the moon of the 13th from the 13th shard, but on the other hand, if they can make a void gate on the source moon, it should take them to the moon of the 13th.
The preparations will be extensive, and we will require vast quantities of ether. After all, our gate must be large enough to accommodate another great worm.
She recalls how Fandaniel used the Tower of Babel to blast Zodiark seals on the moon, and says they can use the tower in a similar fashion. The gate is going to be very large, so she'd like to have Nidhana's aid in devising something to block Voidsent from coming through to the source moon. Everyone agrees to the plan and sets off to do their part. The hero accompanies Varshan as he swaps his youthful avatar out for the fully grown one, then Urianger explains the next steps. First, that massive quantities of ether are gathered and delivered to the Tower of Babel. Second, that they gain access to the Tower of Babel and figure out how to use it. As for the first step, Urianger mentions the Isle of Haam, which has massive mana geysers largely untapped, but they will need permission from the Sharlayan Forum to visit it. The 3 of them plus Zero head to the Baldessian Annex to speak with Kryl. She's with Erenville, who's keeping her informed on what the Gleaners are up to, and he mentions he'll be going on extended leave soon. Varshan takes a moment to explain their needs to Kryl and what's at stake.
An invasion from the 13th? Must the stakes always be so dramatic?
It's true the Isle of Haam is a veritable font of ether, but as it's under the Forum's direct jurisdiction, only a privileged few get to set foot there. I myself haven't.
Kryl says she'll make an official request to the Forum on their behalf so they can access the island. Urianger says that originally the ether at the Isle of Haam was to be used to power the Ragnarok, and he's curious about how exactly that was supposed to work. The heroes leave to speak with an engineer named Margaret to learn more. She says they had ether tanks constructed, but doesn't remember what became of them. Then they find Kokol Donkel, who's just returned from vacation. Thankfully, he knows where the tanks are, and suddenly Forchanol approaches to tell the heroes they have permission to use the island, but warns that it is home to vicious beasts. Kokol says he'll bring the tanks by airship while the heroes journey to the isle by boat. At the dock, Thancred joins the party and meets Zero for the first time. The heroes travel to the Aether Font, fighting many savage creatures along the way. As they approach the font, they are attacked by the Octomammoth, but they slay it.
Much obliged for clearing the way. We'll get to work at once.
Kokol discusses with Varshan about getting these tanks shipped to Garlemald once they're ready. As the tanks are being filled, Zero asks Thancred what binds him to his friends, and he says he trusts them. She recalls the lack of trust in all her interactions over the ages.
Full often did Memoriates betray their own, corrupted by the very power they wielded. You could trust no one but yourself.
A moment later, Thancred and Urianger talk about some client they're working with, but there's no mention of who or what it's about. Next, the heroes travel to Camp Broken Glass to secure access to the Tower of Babel. Varshan greets the Ilsabard contingent and explains their mission. Lucia and Maxima are concerned about the trauma the Garleans have experienced from the tower and the primal anima, and are worried about how they might react if the tower is reactivated. They have only just begun to earn their trust. Urianger stays to start working out the logistics, while the other three seek the twins since they best understand the Garlean people. They find them at Tertium. Alongside Julius, they agree that the Garleans would not handle the activation of the tower well, and might even be up in arms over it. Alice suggests they simply speak with the locals, so everyone breaks into groups to get started. The hero speaks with the people around Tertium. Their memories of being possessed by it and their loved ones being turned into monsters are still fresh, so they ask if it could just be torn down instead. As the group of heroes begin to reconvene, Julius introduces Nias and Medius, two magistrates who are leading the effort to found a new Garlean government. They've come to assert their claim to Garlemald and the Tower of Babel, and they refuse to let the heroes use it for any purpose. With their permission, Varshan goes to Senatus, an old train station which currently houses the Garlean government. He insists that only with an open heart and an open mind will they convince the leaders to work with them, so the heroes split up to speak with the residents of Senatus. They learn that the Garleans rely heavily on the Ilsabard contingent for supplies, but they are resentful about it. Varshan gets an idea suddenly, and everyone returns to Camp Broken Glass to discuss it. He reveals his plan to Lucia and Maxima first, to propose a trade agreement between Radzidhan and Garlemald. While their intentions have been good, the Ilsabard contingent have created a situation where Garlemald lives at their mercy and they're losing their autonomy. An equitable arrangement could restore their sense of agency. He says his experience with Zero helped him understand this, which surprises her. Then Varshan pitches the idea to the magistrates with the support of Maxima. The magistrates disagree sharply, with Medius calling Neus a traitor and storming off in anger. The hero chases after him and rescues him from attacking Magitech weapons.
Don't think I'm indebted to you. I never asked for your help.
Julius gently reminds him to consider their grim reality, but to know that there is hope for Garlemald.
We are the chain that connects generations past and future. You and I, it's links. Help us, Lord Metius, for all we have been and for what we may yet become. Please.
Hesitantly, he agrees to return to the discussion with Varshan, and he thanks the hero for saving him. Zero asks Julius and the hero to stay behind for a moment, as she's curious about trust again.
You bound that man with trust, didn't you? That's why he did not require coercion to return.
Trust is infectious, in a manner of speaking. When someone believes in you, it makes you want to believe in them, in others, in yourself.
Zero remarks that lack of trust also spreads more lack of trust. She recalls a time long ago when she was a lone Memoriate, and two men tried to join her, a swordsman and a mage. She refused them and walked away.
I didn't know what to make of it then, but now... Perhaps they shared a bond of trust. Perhaps they were the last ones left who dared.
Shortly after, her world fell to darkness.
I never had the power to save my home single-handed. I should have accepted their invitation.
Julius encourages her, tells her she has friends, and that he himself trusts in her. She's moved almost to tears, and takes his hand when he offers. They return to Tertium to find that Garlemald and Radzidhan have come to a trade agreement, and Metius apologizes for his outburst earlier. The people are gathered, and Neus calls their attention to officially announce the agreement, not an act of charity, but a bargain between equal nations. Alphino notes that the people of Garlemald are feeling hopeful again. Urianger says the ether tanks are about to arrive, and he suggests they go to the moon to check on Y'shtola's progress with preparations there. He says Varshan would be of greatest assistance in dragon form, so he agrees to go as Virtra, and he gives the hero Ajdaya's eye for safekeeping.
In mare elementorum, then. Go well.
Forgive me. I'd hoped to have everything in order sooner. My thanks for the extra hands.
May I just say how excited we are to be a part of this grand undertaking. The development of the artificial Atomos was one thing, but this is an opportunity like no other.
Y'shtola says to create the containment seal required to prevent a massive voidsent from invading, they can simply use the brands that were once used to imprison Zodiark. First, the hero heads to Bestway's burrow to get aid from the Loporrits. They agree to provide fighting machines to kill any smaller voidsent that might slip through.
They've never tussled with voidsent before, but with sufficient data, they ought to hold their own against the ghastly fiends.
Zero is the best qualified to train them, as she is a voidsent herself. She utterly destroys them, but the Loporrits say they now have the data they need to make them better. With a little encouragement from the hero, they get started.
Can you hear me? We've just finished restoring the brands.
The hero returns to Y'shtola. She calls the twins and tells them to send the ether from the Tower of Babel.
Success. The gate is open, and the seal appears to be in place.
I dare say the seal doth serve its purpose.
Y'shtola wonders why the reflections can join to the source, but never with each other. She suggests that the source is unique and exerts a sort of pull on them. Hydaelyn's power of light and stasis would counteract this, but in the void her influence would be weakest.
Now, I must stress, it was because we sought the void that we succeeded. Pleased though I am to have my theory proven, the secrets of travel to other reflections still elude us.
Urianger stays to keep watch over the seal, while the others climb on Vritra's back and enter the void. The heroes land on the moon of the 13th and find it to be a great red emptiness, no voidsent anywhere. They split up to explore the ground and sky. After a moment, they discover a giant chasm with strange structures in it. Y'shtola says it closely resembles the chasm on the source moon where Zodiark was once imprisoned, and it likely contains a fragment of his power. Suddenly, Vritra says he can feel his sister in the chasm, so everyone jumps on his back and he flies in. They quickly find Azhdaya, who's unresponsive until the hero restores her eye. She's happy to see her brother, but says Golbez's chains that bind her cannot be broken. She's also startled by the presence of mortals, as her last experience with mortals would have been Alligans, who the dragons were at war with. Vritra defends them and says that today, on the source, mortals and dragons are allies. Moving on, Azhdaya tells them that killing Golbez will break her chains, and she tells them where he can be found. They head south, as directed, right away. They find a memoria next to a stone, and as the hero holds it, he's granted a vision. In this vision, the hero witnesses the scene where Zero met a swordsman and a mage long ago, but it's from the mage's perspective. They are executing corrupted memoriats when the swordsman, Durante, notices Zero in the distance.
Well, well, a kindred spirit. Perhaps we will finally have a new comrade.
He's saddened when she refuses to join them.
Even when we share the same goal, we can't overcome the mistrust. Such is the way of things, the wisdom of our era.
The vision ends, and Zero realizes the mage from the past was Golbez, just as he drops in. He asks Zero to join him, but she refuses, saying he would bind and coerce her. He then sets Azhdaya free, so that in her weakened state, the darkness fills her and turns her into a voidsent.
Rise, O Shadow Dragon, and obey!
The Shadow Dragon knocks out Vritra as Golbez sends minions to attack the Scions. Then the hero confronts Golbez alone. At the Void Castaes, the Warrior of Light faces Golbez and the Shadow Dragon. The struggle is long, but the hero emerges the victor. Golbez says the hero may have won the battle, but he has won the war. He takes Azhdaya, the Shadow Dragon, and feeds her to the chasm. Since Zodiark's defeat on the Source Moon, some of his ether has lingered here, as Y'shtola noted. That ether coalesces and consumes Azhdaya, then manifests into a new great dark being, which Golbez names Zeromus.
Our warding scales may not hold. Not against a void sent born of Zodiark's ether.
As Vitra flies everyone away to safety, he swears to save his sister, and Golbez laughs. Later, back on the Source Moon, Y'shtola and Zero note that Zeromus is very powerful and hell-bent on finding a way to invade the Source. The hero heads to Bestway's burrow to give Urianger an update. Urianger says the seal they've constructed will hold for now, but he isn't sure for how long. He decides to maintain watch over it while the others reconvene in Radz-at-Han. Everyone is in low spirits, but Zero says that when a void scent is destroyed, the spirits it has consumed are set free.
That is to say, by defeating Zeromus, we may yet save Azhdaya.
Y'shtola says Zeromus must be defeated in the Void, because if he crosses the gate and is defeated in the Source, Azhdaya's soul would enter the ethereal sea. Further, she says resplendent light will be needed to defeat such darkness, and light can be found in abundance on the first reflection. She leaves to study, while Estinian and Zero leave to train together. Meanwhile, on the moon of the 13th, Golbez makes a promise to his long-dead friend Durante that he will bring salvation to their world. And that's it for patch 6.4. Stick around on this channel. When patch 6.5 comes out, I'll be making a story recap for that one as well. See you next time.